Time now for the Morning Rush.
We start with John Smith.
And we are going to be looking at not much of a big weather maker as we head through the afternoon. We'll see just a few spot showers and storms across the northern and western high terrain. A few of those could drift into the lower elevation communities. Then as we head into tomorrow, weather disturbance is actually going to work its way just north and west of the state. That's going to give us a much better coverage of showers and storms, especially across the north and over to the west.
As you get ready to head out the door this morning, we're following the day's top local stories, and we will start with Sarah Yingling, who's live in northeast Albuquerque. Sarah?
Breaking news, Eubank from Buenaventura to Central is back open right now after being closed for several hours for police investigating a possible SWAT situation. Now here's what we've learned so far. Police were called to this area around the old Golden Corral around 3:30. No word on if that person is in custody right now. We have reached out to APD numerous times, but they have yet to return our request for information. What I can tell you is that about an hour ago, this place was swarming with police, and as you can see, things are a lot different right now. Once again, you can see that Eubank is back open. We will continue to reach out to police, and we'll provide you with updates once we learn more. Back to you.
Happening today, Albuquerque voters a first chance to head to the polls as early voting begins. Now, voters will choose Albuquerque's next mayor. There are also 5 city council seats up for grabs. Plus, voters will decide on the healthy workforce ordinance. More on early voting locations coming up in the 5 Facts. Crystal?
The race for governor underway this morning despite the fact that we're still 14 months away from the election. Our KRQE news poll of 500 Albuquerque voters shows there are 2 clear frontrunners, Democrat Michelle Lujan Grisham with 41% and Republican Steve Pierce just 10% behind. Democratic candidates Jeff Apodaca and Joseph Cervantes are far behind in that poll with 4% and 2%.
News 13 is your local election headquarters for all the information you need regarding this year's election. Our coverage on air and, of course, on the KRQE News app.
This morning, officials are trying to find 19-year-old Savannah Garcia, who they say was on the back of the motorcycle the night Devon Lyman allegedly shot and killed APD officer Daniel Webster in 2015. She's expected to be the key witness in this murder trial. The state asked the judge to issue a material warrant that allows Garcia to be held for 5 days when they find her again. Prosecutors are trying to record her testimony before trial.
Happening today, an Albuquerque man charged in a crash that killed a 10-year-old girl is expected in court. Last November, police say Xavier Nelson was street racing and rear-ended a family's van at more than 100 miles per hour. Carmen Esmeralda River was thrown from that van and died. Today, a judge is expected to go over his conditions of release.
A physician's assistant is waking up behind bars this morning accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. Last month, APD responded to a home near Wyoming and Spain after the girl reported that 47-year-old James Beverly had abused her for months. Beverly was arrested at his family practice office in Cedar Crest. BCSO is now trying to figure out if there were any other victims.
President Trump pushing ahead on tax reform and reaching across the aisle to cut a deal. A bipartisan group of senators had dinner with the president last night, but before there's a tax overhaul, there has to be a budget deal. Republican lawmakers say that any tax rewrite cannot add to the nation's debt. New this morning, the Trump administration's restrictive policy on refugees is still in place after a Supreme Court ruling. Yesterday, the justices agreed to an administration's request to block a lower court ruling. It would have eased the refugee ban and allowed up to 24,000 refugees to enter the country before the end of October. And happening today, Senator Bernie Sanders plans to unveil his proposal to provide government-run health care for all. At least 12 Democratic senators, including several possible presidential contenders, have co-sponsored the bill. Republicans are poised to paint it as a colossal tax increase that would strip employer-provided health insurance from roughly half of all Americans.
The public library that became the site of one of the worst tragedies in Clovis history is expected to reopen in the next few days. That's according to a city manager. Late last month, a mass shooting killed 2 beloved library employees and injured 4 others. Community members say the opening of the library would symbolize progress.
On to News this morning, the Justice Department will not prosecute 6 Baltimore police officers in the 2015 death of Freddie Gray. The DOJ says it found insufficient evidence to support the charges against the officers. Gray died in 2015 after suffering a neck injury while in police custody. His death spurred massive protests and even riots in Baltimore. John?
Over 5 million people are without power in the southeast as major cleanup efforts get underway following Irma. So far, 24 people in the U.S. have died as a result of the storm. Federal officials estimate the storm destroyed 1/4 of all homes in the Keys. The recovery is slowly coming along as airports and hospitals are beginning to open back up. President Trump will visit the area tomorrow. Here in New Mexico, we are looking at a very low metro threat index for this afternoon. Outside of the very slightest chance of an isolated storm, we're looking at lots of sunshine, so great state fair weather. Adam?
Yeah, today the state fair continues. There are a few events on deck. First, it's Dollar Admission Day at Expo, New Mexico. Also, it's one of the biggest events at the fair. The cake contest begins at 1:30 today. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does. Here's some new facts for you this morning. Amazon.com bringing home the bacon since acquiring Whole Foods. The e-commerce giant is enjoying a surge in online grocery shopping. It began carrying staples from Whole Foods' 365 Everyday brand. Sales during the first week totaled around $500,000.
There are some new and good details this morning in the war on cancer. Between 1991 and 2014, the U.S. cancer death rate fell 35% for children and 25% for adults. Researchers say that means 2.1 million lives have been saved. John?
All right, let's take a look at your morning commute, where things not looking too bad on the freeways yet this morning. We do want to make sure that you keep the freeways looking not too bad by trying to keep that accident free. But of course, you're going to want to expect to see some of that usual slowing, especially on I-40 heading eastbound into the city and I-25 going southbound.
New this morning, Los Lunas resident and firefighter Jared Bottinelli is reducing his carbon footprint by using the solar panels on his house to charge his electric Volkswagen Beetle. He transformed the 1968 VW Bug by installing a motor typically found in small trucks and using dozens of batteries. And get this, it saves him about $300 a month.
Great idea. Sister Margaret Ann of Archbishop Coleman F. Carroll High School in West Kendall, Florida, has quickly become an overnight sensation, and it's all thanks in part to her tree cutting skills. Video of her taking a chainsaw to a downed tree has quickly gone viral. The Miami-Dade Police Department posted her efforts on their Twitter feed, and as of just an hour ago, that tweet has been retweeted 2.4 thousand times and liked nearly 5,000 times.
She's getting it done. Now it's time for the 5 facts this morning.
All right, start with number 5. A local family's idea to help recent hurricane victims is getting a lot of attention this morning. Jordan, Ethan, and Noah trying to raise $200 through an online lemonade stand for a $2 donation. They will send you a handwritten thank you letter and a packet for 1 cup of lemonade. The boys say all donations will go directly to the Hurricane Harvey and Irma Relief Fund.
On to number 4. The Archbishop of Santa Fe plans to soon release the assignments of clergy members who are either accused of or found guilty of sexually abusing children. Archbishop John Wester already put out a list of the names of the 74 priests, deacons, and brothers who worked within the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, along with an apology. He says, in part, quote, "We must practice openness and transparency whenever possible." Some of the civil and criminal cases date back to the 90s, and you can see the full list on the KRQE News app this morning.
At number 3, we're looking at another hot day on the way. Temperatures into the low 90s later on this afternoon, a good 5 to 10 degrees above average. We'll see plenty of sunshine. The storms will be mainly across the northern mountains and out into the Gila.
Number 2, now there are new allegations against an Albuquerque school board member. This as the DA decides if she and her daughter will face charges. Report from the state auditor says Dr. Annalie Maestas and her daughter, the assistant business manager, stole nearly $500,000 while running La Promesa Early Learning Center. Tim Keller says Julianne Maestas was signing checks made out to vendors, then pocketing the school's money. Last year, Annalie sparked an investigation after she's accused of using school money to pay for carpet cleaning at her home.
Number 1 this morning, early voting locations open for the Albuquerque municipal election today. This year, voters will elect a new mayor, and 5 city council seats are also up for grabs. There are 12 early voting locations throughout the city. All of them are open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. starting today. We have a link to the list under the Always On tab at krqe.com right now.